What do you think about that? Like the way I characterized it there? Because like from knowing Lurpus and Natu for years and years and years and years, like it's funny because when people ask me all the time, like, why is Denmark so good in Counter-Strike? And I say, like, to be fair, the German scene when it had more players had the same thing. It's like when you start your career, you play for IGLs that tell you how to do tactics and what role to play, and it's like a real sport. Like every level you go up, you're playing under people who are at the very least good. Like remember, people forget Crystal's German. Obviously, Gobby, Legia here, like this. I'm sure every team, like, mate, look how many fucking coaches come from the German scene. Look how many of them went to foreign teams that you guys won't even know are German. So it's the same thing in Denmark. Like in Denmark, before you ever even get to play for MSL or Carrigan or fucking Cliff, you played for Hunden, you played for Asilian, you played for whoever, like some real IGL. But I noticed in Finland, it's like they almost just never really cared about that side of the game. It felt like there's a couple of people, like I said, it's like you in the modern day, like at fair play to Sork and see why they picked him up as a coach. But aside from that, I also get the sense as well when you look at some of the cuts made in these teams, they also sometimes don't even know that it is tactics that's helping them, if you know what I mean. What do you think on this topic, Alexi?
I think you hit the nail in the coffin. I think in Finland it hasn't happened, and I think it's because of, obviously it's because of where everything starts, and if there is a system to build these players, there would be more. But I think the personality in Finland, like all of the stereotypes, like sometimes they actually match. Because if you're a guy who sits on PC 24/7, there is always, at least I feel like in Finnish people, maybe 2020 it's a bit different, but like let's say 8 years back, I just feel like there's a good chance that you maybe don't have the best social skills. You're not like a guy who keeps everything in control or want to be this guy. You're more of a guy who sits and just likes to play. So you're not a leader type. And then I just feel like maybe these teams like ENS 2016 and or even before, like 14, or maybe in the 14 team we saw it, and then iGame or Arctic or these kind of teams, like I didn't see them pick up any talents. I didn't see them pick up any 16, 17-year-old insane player or some player that could have something. Like what happened a lot is that we just changed the players, like the
recycled the old names, right?
The team, the 3D Max team, the major team, for example.
Yes.
It had a lot of old guys. Obviously, they weren't as old, but it had
Sure.
Natu and these guys. And they really, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't really give it a shot to bring in someone like really, really young and try to build him into a star role or something. And maybe some guy can tell me if I'm completely wrong here, but I just feel like it didn't really happen. But then on the Habu team, for example, when I was the guy who was a bit respected even, I took the chance on Sergey, like straight up. Then I took the chance on Oton because I knew him from my past team, my previous team, and what he can be capable of. And this was when I was like 18, I think, just turning 18 or 19. And I'm just picking up these younger players, and I think it really paid off. If you see where Oton and Sergey are right now, obviously not Sergey at the moment, but where he was last year, and where Oton is right now, like playing in a EU team. So it's like I just feel like we would see more Finnish players maybe if we took a chance on them earlier. But at least right now there is a lot of young players in Finland. But yeah, we really lack these guys who take the control, because we cannot see the new young guy in the top 2 Finnish team. We can never see him play like really legit until someone who is willing to be the leader is leading them to something and winning something to see what he's capable of. I don't really see those players.
That's kind of how I always saw the Finnish scene. I think that this Xarte, Caron, and this third player, they were in every single team. And it's funny, they had like 3 teams, like best team, second best, third best team, and they just always swap the players between each other. If this guy's performing number 2 team very well, he's just going up to the first team, and one player of them is dropping down. And I always remember it like three teams, iGame, Havu, ENS, and they were always just swapping players between each other.
I honestly don't remember all of the roster changes, but I think you're kind of right, because I cannot think about too many roster moves that really did anything in the Finnish scene, because right now I'm not talking about Sunny getting picked up, Zen getting picked up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just talking about only Finnish teams and trying to bring a Finnish team into the top. I didn't see this happen too much.
Well, listen, this is obviously going to be relevant to your career, but I'm actually making a wider point again about the history of the Finnish scene, which luckily, thanks to having like a few friends who are in the scene, I've been able to sort of get the inside story on some stuff. Another thing that the Finnish scene is notorious for, which ties into exactly what Legia is saying here, is they are normally so quick to cut people from their teams. Like, I don't know how they do it, but like you lose the land to the team that you think you're supposed to beat, right? Cut this guy. Someone on the other team beats you and plays really well. We've got to get him. We've got to kick him out. Like Lurpus told me some crazy stories from 1.6. I've even told some of them publicly. He doesn't mind. Like, there was one where basically in one of his teams, like, they all had like a private one-on-one chat open with every other member of the team, and it was like fucking like Game of Thrones. Like it was like, it's like, if I can get 3 people on my side, you're kicked. If you can get 2 on yours, maybe I'm kicked. Like, dude, this is like what these guys are like. Is it really like that in the Finnish scene? Because they still have, obviously, your case is an extreme one, but we've seen some really crazy cuts. I mean, listen, we're not going to flame Alu necessarily on this show, but I did think that meme on Reddit was hilarious, the Among Us one, where it was like the original Ents team, and obviously Alu must be the imposter because he was the only one left. Like, everyone else is kit for the team. So, like, even though that's a joke version, it's kind of like, it's kind of the way the scene works for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've heard, like, once you go out drinking with these guys, like, you hear the most insane stories, and I just remember this one you told, because it's actually true. Like, this is what they did, and they just suddenly changed players, and they can eat, like, after a week or two, a guy could be back in the team or something like this. But
yeah, and by the way, there's the other thing. Because they're so, like, you know them, Legia. Finnish people in general, it's not that they're all quiet, right? But they're just like, they have like their own way of doing things where they just don't talk about certain things socially. So when that would happen, by the way, they kick you out the team. So they're essentially telling you by their actions, like, yeah, we don't want you, we don't value you. If you're back in the team 2 weeks later, they just don't talk about it. Like, you're just back and it's like you were never gone. Like, it's like dad just went away for 2 weeks with some like fucking floozy into another country, but he's back now. So we're all, you know, we're not going to talk about it. It's all happy families again. Dude, it's weird. They don't even address it.
Brother, I've been on 2 lands with Aldo back then and with mouse spots, and I've learned a lot about the Finnish mentality just in 2 fucking weekends. Fucking crazy guys. And drinking in Paris with them was wild. So,
oh, of course. Yeah, there's the other thing, by the way. If people don't know that, because obviously all the nerds in CS don't know it. Listen, they're all mad quiet, yeah. Like, when you just meet them at a LAN and, you know, they're not comfortable, they're English and stuff. But as soon as they have, like, 4 shots or something, they go fucking mental. Like, that's when they're getting, like, carried out, people having fights. Like, it gets ridiculous at that. But then they're like, dude, they go the opposite. They start putting their arm around you, like, leaning in way too close to your face. Like, oh, yeah, start telling you about, like, the fucking hockey team as though I give a shit about the Finnish hockey team. They're ridiculous.
funny people, man.
But I think that the like, what's the most important thing in this like all of these teams, and why, like, I know the French teams, like, they tend to have fights, and they have like really hard, like, grudges, you know, you can play with this player and this player, but what they do is they actually have a fight, like, they actually talk and fight. But in Finland, and in the Finnish scene at least, and I've seen it happen, and it happened to me at least, it's like, you don't talk, and no one says anything, and stuff happens behind your back.
You just DM people privately, right?
Yeah, suddenly you're like, you might be out, or you just don't know about stuff happening, you know? So it's like, it's quite rare. Obviously, it depends on the players, but at least what I've experienced is like, you don't talk about stuff that, like, you don't have this one-on-one talk, or you don't have this team talk where you actually address everything and try to fix it. Something we've done with OG because of past experiences. Like, what we need to do is we just need to have these talks constantly to try to fix things and not to have this these things happen. But at least for me, I wasn't a part of the 1.6 scene, and it was insane about these stories. But for me, it didn't happen. Like, I really dislike roster changes, and I always want to improve the team, because once I start the team, I know the players. For example, ENS. I studied the players. I studied Aerial, for example, before I won a team, like, really hard. I knew exactly what X7 is like, and I already played with Sergey for a year or something. I know exactly what he's like, and I just overall, like, watched Alu's games because it was the only thing to watch if you were a Finnish player.
Of course,
because he played for a good team. So it's like, I knew exactly what I'm getting into, and it's not like after 2 months I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Because I know what the players are. I just wanted to work with those. We played for what, like 1.5 years before we changed the player, and the player was me. So it's like I never wanted to change. And yes, like sometimes it felt like we were stuck or something, and we could have done something differently. We could have made a roster, like whatever. But all in all, like I kind of dislike them, but you have to face some facts as well. Like sometimes you really need to do it. For example, on the Havu team, when we didn't even reach the HLTV top 30, and it's a dream for every one of us. Like we wanna fucking be there. We wanna get into one tournament. And I just thought it was really necessary to pick up a young talent, and we picked Sergey, and suddenly we reached the top 30 and like got into a tournament. So sometimes it's a really good thing as well, and sometimes you can go really horribly wrong. But for me, it hasn't been that insane, but I've heard a lot of stuff, like a lot of stuff. But you only work with so many players, so